For more on Kamala Harris's record on crime, let's welcome in now John Schweppe, the Director of Policy at American Principles Project. Sarah Bedford is an investigations editor for the Washington Examiner. Welcome to you both. Speaking of which, the Washington Examiner actually publishing an article on that very bail fund Harris backed 4 years ago, saying, should she lock down the Democratic nomination, Harris will likely face continued soft on crime criticism, particularly over her prior support for the Minnesota Freedom Fund, a nonprofit group that fundraised after the death of George Floyd to bail out criminals from jail. We'll go to Sarah on this. We've also seen her recently say she's going to go after Donald Trump, right, who she describes as a convicted felon. Which side of Kamala Harris can we expect her to lean into during this political campaign?
Well, I think a lot of the anti-police sentiments that Kamala Harris expressed during the 2020 Democratic primary are no longer in vogue. In fact, they're now politically toxic. So I don't think we'll hear a lot of that kind of rhetoric from Kamala Harris. The times have really changed since then, and voters are fed up with the chaos that they've seen on the streets. I think that being said, the fact that Kamala Harris has been on both sides of the crime issue in such a short period of time reinforces one of her biggest weaknesses, which is that despite being the vice president for the last 4 years, despite being a senator for years before that, and a major figure in California politics, it's really hard to articulate what she stands for. She doesn't have a vision that she's pushed since she's been vice president and when she was running for president. It's one of the reasons why she performed so poorly, besides just being a bad candidate overall. And so I think it will be difficult for her to come out and put forward any kind of coherent policy platform to rival Donald Trump's, which has been 8 years in the making. And, any voter off the street can describe what Trump is running on. I think it'll be hard for Kamala Harris to articulate what she's running on this time around.
Yeah, it seems as if an attack of character versus policy is where this campaign is going. And I say that with Politico also reporting on Harris's background as a prosecutor. We'll show you this, saying she was not the tough on crime caricature deplored by the left, nor the bleeding heart activist still depicted by the right. But as she prepares for a head-to-head matchup with former President Donald Trump in the fall, her past as a prosecutor may now prove to be an asset, particularly given the considerable legal problems of Trump. So, John, going to that point, again, to that strategy of law enforcement, she was a district attorney in San Francisco, the attorney general in California. So now you have a person with law enforcement background now, and she's essentially going after what she calls a convicted felon, using this strategy against Trump, again, villainizing the character, if you will, of Trump. Is that a winning strategy, and why or why not?
Yeah, I think we have to do everything we can to fight back against this Kamala narrative that the left is really trying to push. Let's remember what happened in the 2020 primary. She was basically being attacked by the left for being too aggressive of an AG in California. And so she took a really aggressive tack to the left on BLM, on, the Breathe Act, all these different things to basically become lax on criminal justice. And so we have to hold her accountable for that. That's what's unpopular. They're going to try to return to where she was attacked before because they think that'll work here. But the reality is she's a radical on this stuff. She's committed to a lot of crazy things. You posted the Minnesota bail fund, but there's even actual legislation and things like that. So I think the Trump campaign needs to really go tough on her because she's not tough on crime at all, actually.
Yeah, not to mention the border crisis in which people cross into this country illegally by breaking the law, which she had been tapped to oversee or find the so-called root causes, root problems that led to it. John and Sarah, thanks so much. We're going to have to leave it right there. Appreciate your time this morning.